Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I never thought a Friday night at a friend's party could turn my life upside down. But here I am, sitting at my kitchen table hours later, replaying every detail, trying to make sense of what happened. My name is Elliot, I'm 39, and I've been married to Clara for 12 years. People always said we were the perfect couple, fun, spontaneous, and fiercely loyal to each other. But I should have known that appearances can be deceiving. The party started innocently enough. It was Milo's annual rooftop gathering, the kind where everyone's pretending life is perfect, even if it's falling apart behind closed doors. Clara and I arrived together, laughing, exchanging small talk with friends. I noticed she seemed quieter than usual, lingering near the bar a little too long, her phone buzzing constantly. I brushed it off. Maybe she was just tired from work. The first hour passed in a blur of champagne flutes and music. Clara kept disappearing for short intervals, always returning with a sly smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I tried to keep myself distracted, chatting with Jasper, catching up with old colleagues, but something in the pit of my stomach told me she was hiding something. Then came the moment that changed everything. I was holding my drink, chatting with Luna, one of my wife's friends, when I realized something odd. My cocktail tasted different, a little sweeter than usual, a little heavier. I frowned, trying to convince myself it was just the mix of the evening. But the suspicion didn't leave me. Clara had been hovering near my drink more than once, pretending to refill hers. Each time, she glanced at me, eyes glinting with amusement I didn't understand. I excused myself to the balcony, taking a slow breath. That's when Jasper walked up, noticing my tension. "Everything all right, man?" he asked. I hesitated, then shook my head. "Something's off," I said quietly. "I think Clara might have done something to my drink." Jasper's brow furrowed, skeptical. "Come on, Elliot. You've known her forever. She wouldn't." I didn't wait for him to finish. Something in my gut told me I had to act, but carefully. I couldn't make a scene, at least not yet. Not until I knew for sure. For the next hour I watched. Clara mingled effortlessly, chatting, laughing, spinning stories no one would question. But whenever she walked past my table, my heart sank. That little smirk, the casual brush of her hand over my glass, the way she kept checking if I was watching. It was deliberate. My mind raced. Why would she do this? And more importantly, why now? By 11 p.m., the party was in full swing. People were dancing, glasses clinking, music booming. I felt the heat rising in my chest, but I stayed calm, pretending to enjoy myself while plotting my next move. Clara leaned over to pour another round of drinks and, as expected, she tried to touch my glass again. This time I was ready. I swapped my drink with a fresh one I had ordered earlier, careful to keep her unaware. A small, almost imperceptible move, but enough to keep her from executing whatever she had planned. I smiled, trying to appear casual, even friendly, while inside I felt a rush of exhilaration. For the first time that night, I felt like I was back in control. The moment passed. Clara didn't seem to notice. I told myself to wait, to let the night unfold naturally, because any overt reaction could ruin everything. But I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. My mind replayed our last 6 months. Clara's distant texts, the secretive calls, the unexplained nights out. I had hoped it was stress, boredom, nothing more. Now it felt deliberate, intentional. And then came the moment I realized I wouldn't just let it slide. Not tonight. Not after everything. The thrill of taking the upper hand, the quiet satisfaction of knowing she couldn't predict my next step, made my heart pound in a way I hadn't felt in years. My mind raced with possibilities. Subtle reversals, small exposures, public surprises. I wanted her to feel the same shock, the same sense of disorientation that I had felt when I discovered her intentions. I reminded myself of one rule I'd always lived by: never act in anger, only in strategy. Calm, calculated, deliberate. That was the only way to win. Not just this night, but the respect and clarity I deserved. As the night edged toward midnight, the rooftop pulsed with energy. People were laughing, some shouting over the music, glasses raised in celebration of nothing in particular. But my focus was singular, Clara. I watched her weave through the crowd, confident, untouchable. The smirk had returned, and with it the familiar sense of challenge. She thought she had me figured out. Little did she know, I'd spent the past hour quietly reclaiming control. I waited for the perfect moment. It came when Milo called for a toast, everyone gathering near the center of the deck. Clara leaned against the railing, holding her drink, eyes scanning the crowd. That's when I approached, carrying the glass I had prepped earlier. I didn't say a word. I smiled politely, placing it beside her untouched drink, and stepped back. The subtlety of the gesture was perfect, innocuous enough that no one suspected anything. Minutes passed. The toast ended, laughter erupted, and people returned to their conversations. Clara picked up the wrong glass, mine, the one she couldn't tamper with, and took a sip. Her eyes widened just slightly, a fraction too late. I caught the tiny flicker of confusion, the realization dawning on her. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile openly. But inside, a wave of satisfaction washed over me. Then came the final act. I waited until she was distracted, chatting with Luna near the dessert table. Quietly, I asked Milo to call everyone's attention. He laughed jokingly. "What now, Elliot?" I smiled. "Just a little demonstration," I said lightly, keeping my tone calm, casual. The crowd gathered instinctively, curious. Clara's brow furrowed, unease creeping in. I held up my untouched drink and addressed the group. "Funny thing about parties," I began, "is that sometimes we think things are in our control, but reality has a way of surprising us." The crowd chuckled, thinking it was a playful quip. Clara's smile faltered. I continued, voice steady, measured. "Tonight, I learned a lesson about trust, about intentions, and about the people we think we know the most." Heads turned, interest peaked. A few whispered to each other, sensing tension. Clara's fingers tightened around her glass. She looked at me, realization dawning, but she remained silent. I didn't need words. The air between us crackled with a quiet intensity. Shock, confusion, and something else, something unspoken. Acknowledgement. I took a slow sip from my own glass, letting the gesture hang in the air. Clara's drink, the one she intended to tamper with, remained untouched beside mine. I held eye contact for a fraction too long. The room sensed it. Friends shifted, glances exchanged. It wasn't dramatic. There were no shouts, no accusations, just the weight of clarity. The tables had turned, quietly, efficiently. After that moment, Clara excused herself, muttering something about needing fresh air. I watched her go, a mix of relief and triumph swelling in me. The rest of the evening passed without incident, but the shift was palpable. People approached me, subtly congratulating or teasing, unsure exactly what had transpired but sensing the quiet victory. Milo clapped me on the back. "Well played," he said, voice low, grinning. Later, after the party, I walked home under the soft glow of streetlights. The night felt alive, electric, different. I replayed the events in my head, thinking not of revenge, but of clarity. I realized that sometimes the smallest actions, subtle, unnoticed, deliberate, can speak louder than words, arguments, or anger. The satisfaction wasn't in humiliation. It was in reclaiming dignity, maintaining composure, and quietly asserting control over a situation that could have easily spiraled into chaos. At home, I poured myself a fresh drink, this one entirely mine, and sat by the window. I thought about Clara, not with hatred, not with bitterness, but with understanding. She had her reasons, her frustrations, her impulses, but I had mine too. And tonight, for the first time in months, I felt a sense of equilibrium. I hadn't needed to shout, confront, or shame. I had simply played the game calmly, strategically, and with precision. And in doing so, I'd reminded myself of a simple truth. Respect, in any form, starts with oneself. The next morning, messages flooded my phone from friends who had heard bits of the story, curious and incredulous. Clara didn't reach out, and I didn't expect her to. I had said everything I needed to say without uttering a single accusatory word. My point was made silently, efficiently, and effectively. I called my best friend Theo, recounting the night's events with a laugh I hadn't felt in months. He listened, offering jokes, high fives, but also a deeper acknowledgement. "You handled that with more class than most people could ever dream of, Elliot. You turned a nightmare into a lesson." That's exactly what it was, a lesson. Not about parties, not about drinks, not even about Clara. It was about understanding boundaries, valuing oneself, and recognizing when to step back, when to act, and when to reclaim control without losing composure. Sometimes life throws betrayals disguised as mischief. Sometimes the people we trust most try to undermine us. And sometimes the most shocking moment isn't in what they do, but in how calmly and decisively you respond. Tonight, I learned that lesson in full. And the quiet shock on her face? That was just the icing on the cake.